genetics. So senior 5 learners, senior 6, that's how they look at genetics. Genetics is the study of inheritance, or is the study of heredity. And heredity is the transmission of genes from parents to offspring. Inheritance or heredity can as well be defined as the transmission of characters from parents to offspring. In the study of genetics, there is a number of terminologies or a number of terms that you look at while studying genetics. So we can write terms used in the study of genetics. Terms used in the study of genetics. One of them is a chromosome. Chromosome. A chromosome is a thread-like structure bearing genes, and chromosomes are found within the nucleus of a cell. So they carry the genes. Then two, a gene. Gene. A gene is defined as the basic unit of inheritance that determines a particular characteristic. Or we can define a gene as a section or portion of DNA that determines a particular characteristic. So when we shall be looking at chemicals of life, we shall look at the genome. So the genome is the genetic matter, and so it redirects to genes. So a gene is a portion or section of DNA which determines a particular characteristic. 3, we have alleles. Alleles, this one is a short form of the word allelomorph. Allelomorph. Alleles are alternative forms of a gene that determine contrasting expressions of a characteristic or a trait or a character. Those are what we call alleles. So alleles are also genes, but we call them alternative forms of a gene that control or determine contrasting characteristics, contrasting forms or expressions of a character. Most of the genes are determined by 2 alleles. That is one pair of genes. However, some characters or traits are determined by more than 2 alleles. And so, such alleles are called multiple alleles. Multiple alleles. Multiple alleles. E.g., let's say, for example, the gene which determines blood groups has 3 alleles, or consists of 3 alleles: A, B, O. So this one, or this gene, determines blood group. Blood group. So you can observe that we have allele A, we have allele B, and we have allele O. So such a gene or such alleles are said to be multiple alleles. More than 2 alleles of the same gene which determine or control one trait or characteristic. Another terminology is, which is number 4, is dominant allele. Dominant allele or gene. So every gene has two alternative forms. One is dominant and one is recessive. And so this one brings us to dominant allele or dominant gene. A dominant allele is an allele or a gene whose effect can be seen in heterozygous state. Alternatively, we can define a dominant allele as an allele whose effect can be seen in the phenotype despite the presence of the alternative allele. That is what we call a dominant allele. Then 5, we have recessive allele. Recessive allele or gene. A recessive gene is a gene or an allele whose effect is seen in the phenotype when the alleles are in identical state. Or can simply say is a gene or an allele whose effect can only be seen in the phenotype in homozygous state. Consider height as a character, height of organisms. For example, in genetics, we talk about the height of peas. Peas, which are plants, consider height. Height is controlled by two alleles, alternative forms of the same gene. And the gene is denoted by capital T and small t. This one is because gene representation is such that a dominant gene is represented by a capital letter of a given alphabet, and then the recessive gene or recessive allele is represented by a small letter of the same alphabet. That one is very important because scholars or learners normally write a gene. For example, the dominant allele, somebody can write T, and then the recessive allele, somebody writes another letter of a different alphabet. That one is not acceptable. So look at this gene here, capital T and small t. The small t or small letter represents recessive allele, and then the capital letter or capital T represents dominant allele or the dominant gene. So the recessive allele determines or controls the recessive character called shortness or dwarfism, whereas the dominant allele represents the dominant character, and this is tallness. Or we can write tall, so we have shortness and tallness. So these alternative forms are called alleles, and they denote a gene that determine height in organisms such as peas. Now, the other terminology is diploid. Diploid, which is denoted as 2N in biology. Diploid. We can also call it diploid state. Diploid condition or diploid simply means a description of a cell which possesses two sets of homologous chromosomes. So, organisms have cells, but these cells have sets of chromosomes from either parents. Consider a human being. Some other chromosomes will be given or will be denoted by the female gamete and the other set of the chromosomes by the gamete from the male organism. Now, such an organism possessing two sets of chromosomes, two sets of homologous chromosomes, is said to be diploid. Homologous chromosomes are chromosomes which are similar in that they have the same sequence of genes, they have same loci, homologous chromosomes. The word homologous means similar, and so these organisms which have homologous chromosomes, the chromosomes are similar in a way that they are of the same length, that is one. Two, same centromere location. And then three, same sequence.